Hey ladies, I hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to my brand new segment for single mother news and political views. Okay, so I'm going to start off by talking about a few facts surrounding absent fathers, which is going to be relevant to a story that I'm going to talk about afterwards that has really annoyed me. And after that, I'm going to move on to some news that sounds positive about universal credit. And then from there, I'm going to move on to a story from Philadelphia in the USA about a single mother and her 5 children who had the horrid experience of being evicted on Thanksgiving Day. Okay, so let's get back to those facts that I was talking about. Children who grew up without fathers are actually at a much greater risk of suffering from abuse, whether it be sexually, emotionally, or physically. Fatherless children are more likely to turn to drugs and to turn to alcohol during their teen years. Children who grow up without their fathers tend to present mental health problems, with the most common one being anxiety. Children who grow up without their fathers are more likely to experience unemployment or have low incomes or claim benefits or even experience homelessness. Children who grow up without their fathers are more likely to have their own children outside of marriages themselves or even outside of relationships. All these facts that I've just mentioned and more creates problems in society which single mothers are then blamed for. Let's take this article, for example, which was published 4 Fridays ago by The Guardian online, and it was written by Damien Gale. It headlines, "Maternal absence cited as major factor in rise of youth violence." Apparently, according to research carried out by Croydon Council, it showed maternal absence was a very important feature in the cases of dozens of young people involved in serious youth violence. Hamida Ali, Croydon Council's cabinet member for community safety, told a hearing that not one of those young people had a relationship with a trusting adult, forget a parent, not a grandparent, not an uncle, not an aunt, not a neighbour, not a mentor, and not a family friend. Now that's so sad, and I'm glad that these very real issues are being brought to light. But what irritates me most about this article is that mothers have been singled out as being absent, with not one mention of the fathers, who are probably the ones who are absent. The council also mentioned that they happen to know of these mothers. Mothers known to the council, not to the police. That could mean anything. Are they known for owing the council tax or rent arrears? Are they known for living in one of the council's houses? Many of the youths involved in violence are young males without positive role models, and most importantly, without fathers in their lives for guidance. If mothers really are missing, what are the reasons? Is it because that they're single mums who are busy trying to hold down their jobs so that they can then provide for their families and pay the bills? I think that Croydon Council should actually research where these assumed absent mothers, yet still known to the council, are, along with how many fathers in the borough are completely absent. However, Croydon Council declined to elaborate further on the findings of its studies, which isn't due to be out until later this year. Now, although it doesn't say the term single mothers, I get the feeling that that is what they are putting the blame of youth violence on. I don't think that this sort of information should have been released without being able to elaborate further, but I'm going to definitely read the rest of their research when they do release it at a later date. But as far as I'm concerned, and in my opinion, there is more than enough evidence to show that the current crisis in society all points towards the many children who are having to grow up without their fathers and with absent fathers and feeling unwanted because they have busy mothers who don't have the time to take on both roles because they're busy trying to make ends meet. The word father isn't mentioned in that article, not once. The word maternal means mother, despite the fact that the word mother was cleverly and conveniently not used. So who is really absent, and why is there a blind eye being turned to the blatant real problem? The most disappointing fact is that many single mothers are not only shamed or blamed, but they are not supported in their parental responsibilities when the fathers of their children are absent. And to be honest, it isn't anybody else's responsibilities but the parents. And that's why those fathers who are absent in their children's lives need to be in their lives instead of leaving their children to grow up feeling so much loss and in need of so much validation from outside things. Leave a comment if you agree with me or even if you disagree. As soon as I discover more when the full report is released, I will definitely shed more light on this story. Alright, so let's move over into more recent news, which is good for single mothers and single fathers who are waiting to be in receipt of universal credit in the UK. The new Secretary for the Department of Work and Pensions, Amber Rudd, has said that she will review the 5-week wait in universal credit regarding payments to housing and repayments of loans that people have obviously taken out during that 5-week wait when they didn't have any benefit. In an interview on Sky News, Amber Rudd said that she particularly wanted to focus on single mothers, as research has shown that single mothers have been the hardest to be hit by the universal credit. I really do hope that Amber Rudd says what she means and means what she says, but I guess we're going to all be following her to see what she does and what happens next. But for now, I do think and I hope that things seem to be changing. What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know. Speaking of comments, I was looking at some of the comments below this article from people like Jim H in Virginia from the USA, who said, but she, referring to Amber Rudd, she said that she wanted to focus on the impacts on particularly single mothers. You know, if you reward undesirable behaviour, you are guaranteed to get more of it. Jim sounds like the type of man who would give a deadbeat dad a job over a single mother who is struggling to feed her kids and reward that type of undesirable behaviour. Single mothers who are on benefits are entitled to it, and they shouldn't be made to feel ashamed to make a claim if they are unable to work at the moment and their children's fathers have deserted them, leaving these single mothers with no other options. Time for Change said, Olive from the buses is doing a great job for people who do not know who the father of their child is. The government is a disgrace. Time for a hard MP who will change the law for people who work. Now, this person who wrote this comment is somebody who would probably vote for Sean Bailey in 2020 to become the Mayor of London. It's people who think like this that are going to vote for an MP like him. And it's people like Sean Bailey who are going to make even more changes that affect single mothers and no doubt lead them to struggle even more. Now, that person in the comments' views on single mothers is that these women don't know who the fathers of their children are. But they didn't even mention the fathers possibly abandoning these women or being absent, and the fact that he or she believes all single mothers want to be on benefits. Now, these types of people, they really don't know the struggle. They have no clue, because a lot of people on benefits, their home is their comfort because they can't even afford to go and live out in the real world. And it's because of people like Time for Change why I've decided to link up with educational departments, because so many mothers on benefits don't like it. They're just doing it because a lot of them have lost their confidence. So Time for Change, the only thing you wrote right in your comment was your name. It's time for change for single mothers, and we are going to show people like you what strong women like us can do. Single mothers, I want you all to know and believe that you are strong enough to build your own businesses. You are strong enough to follow your dreams. You are strong enough to get further education and finish. And you are strong enough to do so much more. Now, the last comment I'm going to read on this story was written by Lochmore, who said, "What an idiot Amber Rudd is. This is encouraging young girls of limited options to get pregnant as they will be rewarded. What a shambles." There were so many comments like this, all made from more than likely Tory supporters. And it's people who think like this who are going to vote for Conservative candidate for Mayor of London, Sean Bailey, in 2020, which is why I'm definitely going to be voting for Labour. Like it or not, some people feel brave enough in their opinions without any experience to speak out against single mothers who often tend to stay silent. Single mothers, please speak up. Most of the time, there's often a huge misunderstanding. I've spoken to people, particularly men, who have despised the thought of single mothers living on benefits, but they've changed their views after listening to, and I mean really listening, to what I have to say. People think that most women, who live on benefits like it and they want to stay this way. And to be honest, they're single mums who have gone to the media showing off their luxury council homes and all the stuff in it that makes the public think that their life must be great. Those women are lying. They didn't get all that stuff from benefit money. When you're a single mum on benefits, most of the time you're always broke. And I'm not going to ignore the fact that there are single mothers out there who are irresponsible with their money and do stupid things, and those women deserve, whatever the consequences are of their actions. But unfortunately, in the end, it's their kids who, end up suffering. However, the majority of mothers are actually trying, and the majority of fathers are absent. Okay, moving on to a more serious story now from the USA. A single mother and her 5 children were evicted on Thanksgiving Day after the landlord had the original eviction date moved forward on that day deliberately. The story, written by Liz Tung from WHYY headlines, "Evicted on Thanksgiving: How a Mum and Her 5 Kids Slipped Through the Cracks," and explains the horrid journey Ricky Rawlings and her 5 children have been on regarding homelessness. It reads, "In early November, Rawls received word that her family was being evicted from the North Philadelphia row home where they've lived for the last 9 months. Rawls says the Office of the Homeless Services placed them there, but they ran out of funding after the first 4 months. Now, nearly half a year later, they were finally being evicted. Officially, they had until the beginning of December to leave, but Rawls says her landlord's lawyer pressed for an earlier deadline, Thanksgiving Day. For Rawls, who spent the last year struggling to keep her family together, it was a cruel reminder of what she has to lose. I could lose my children over being homeless, Rawls says. For me, that's the worst part. That fear was born several years ago during Rawls' last bout of homelessness. The shelters didn't have space, so I turned to the Department of Human Services for help, she says. Instead, they removed my children. It destroyed her trust in government agencies, but it also helped her get on Philadelphia's Housing Choice Voucher Program, which uses federal funds to help low-income people pay their rent. Under HCV, Rawls rented an apartment in West Philadelphia and got her children back. Her family's descent back into homelessness started 2 years later in September 2017. That's when the Philadelphia Housing Authority booted Rawls from its rental assistance program following a legal spat with her former landlord, Thomas Flack. The dispute started in the fall of 2016 after Rawls says Flack refused to return her security deposit. Soon after, Flack filed a lawsuit against Rawls and the Philadelphia Housing Authority for $72 in unpaid rent and over $3,000 of property damages. Rawls missed the first court date, leading to a default decision in Flack's favour. She appealed and managed to make the second one, in which she denied responsibility for the damages. But in the end, the court awarded Flack $1,627.50. When Rawls didn't pay, Flack complained to the Philadelphia Housing Authority, which responded in September 2017 by terminating Rawls' rental assistance. Flack didn't return any requests for comments on this article. It was a major blow for Rawls, who relied heavily on the assistance to pay her rent. Without it, they quickly lost their home. They spent the next few months on the streets. We stayed on family members' living room floor, church pews, Dunkin' Donuts, rented rooms, hotels, anywhere that I considered a safe haven, Rawls says. In the meantime, Raw sought out help from as many groups as she could. She enlisted the Philadelphia Tenants Union to help appeal the Philadelphia Housing Authority's decision, which Raw says is based on an incomplete and outdated court judgment. The group launched a campaign to reverse the termination. They talked with city council members and petitioned supportive housing officials. They also investigated Raw's former landlord, Thomas Flack, and found out that he had a history of harassing, suing, and intimidating tenants. David Thompson, secretary of the Philadelphia Tenants Union, says they've seen an increase in this kind of behaviour among landlords, especially among the city's most vulnerable low-income tenants. Housing voucher landlords make a lot of money just going through a revolving door of vulnerable single mothers, Thompson says. As soon as they want that person out, they can get them out very easily and can get a new desperate single mother in. Much of their power, he says, derives from landlords' widespread reluctance to accept tenants who rely on government subsidies to pay their rent. Now, I haven't read all of this article because it is quite lengthy, but just getting down to the end of it, it says, as for Rawls, she's just about given up on non-profit and government assistance. She says she's tried other supporting housing agencies like the Office of Homeless Services, but she always gets the same answer: try back later. My hope in the system is gone completely, Rawls says. It left us just like slipping through the cracks. Instead, Rawls is exploring other avenues for help. In September, she set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for rent now that they've been evicted. She's using that money for food and clothes. She's even thinking about leaving Philadelphia. Get on a train, go to a different state, and hope somebody cares enough to help, she says. That or stay and lose my kids. Can you imagine going to the Department of Human Services for help, and the only help they have to offer you is to take your children? The only help they have to offer you is hurt, to separate your family. Why couldn't they put Ricky Rawlings and her 5 children in an accommodation, in a motel somewhere? Why did you have to break them up? And they probably took Rawlings' children and put them into care. What about Rawlings? What does that do to a mother? It either makes or breaks her. She either gets strong enough to get her children back. Thank goodness Ricky Rawlings was strong enough to do that. Or it either crushes a mother to the point where she's so weak she doesn't have any fight left in her, because what she had to fight for, her children, are gone. They've been taken. This is something that is quite personal to me because I've been through a similar experience. And, you know, and I feel like such harsh decisions are made when they can be replaced with support. And a lot of it does come down to fathers being absent. And single mothers seem to be getting the brunt of it. These absent fathers get to walk away. They get to even run away from the CSA. There is no consequences. There are no action. I know I'm bringing absent fathers into this, but these 5 children, where is the father of them? Where are their fathers? Why is the mother going through this alone? Why does nobody seem to care? Why do those children's fathers not care about how their children are living? This is beyond bad. And all the attention, and I'm sorry, I mean, this article has been written by somebody that's clearly tried to help, but more exposure needs to be put on fathers who are absent and leaving their children in crisis situations, which they might be aware of and they might not be aware of. But if they're not aware of it, put it out there. Say, who are the fathers of these children? Can you come forward and help? You know, it's time to stop being quiet about the men who contribute to putting women like this in these situations, and it's time to stop letting them get away with it. They have a responsibility to their children, whether they like it or not, and that responsibility needs to be made legal. It's about time now. Can you imagine how scared this mother must be feeling? I think that this story is absolutely horrific. A single mother and her 5 children have been separated and hurt because of funds running out and the actions of people who work in places where she thought that they'd be able to help her. And she got the complete opposite of what she expected. She's scared of living in her own state now, no doubt leaving her seriously affected, and her troubles aren't over yet. What message does what's happened to Ricky Rawlings and her 5 children send out to other single mothers who are facing evictions or who are struggling to pay their rent? How scared do some people want vulnerable single mothers to feel? This woman could do anything to herself right now because she's in a very emotional situation. And most importantly, shame on the father or the fathers of her children who have experienced life without a home and without their mother who had no support. The landlord was found to have a history of harassing, suing and complaining against tenants, and Rawlings was most definitely one of his targets. She and her 5 children are now suffering because of this. Single mothers in Philadelphia, actually anyone looking for an apartment in Philadelphia, stay away from any landlord that goes by the name of Thomas Flack. I can't imagine what this single mother has gone through and what she's still going through, the anger she must feel as well. But I think that this experience that she's going through, having to fight for everything, having to fight for her house, having to fight to get her kids back, is going to make her extremely strong and unstoppable. And I know what I'm talking about. This story is so sad, and I really hope that Ricky is able to find help for herself and her children. They do need a stable home and they do need some steady income, and I hope that she receives help from everyone that she can. And I'm going to try and look for her GoFundMe page and post the link under this video. Now I hope you all enjoyed the new content. Please tell me what you think. I'm going to be coming every week with new stories that I think you'll find interesting, and yeah, stay tuned. Thanks for watching.